Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live, an unusual Friday night episode. Yes. And as you can see, it's just me, and I'm here to rock and roll with y'all and kick it and drop the knowledge the way I can only do it, right? So I will, as always, give a couple of minutes and let some people get in, see what we got here in the chat, and then we will go from there. But in the meantime, while you're waiting, you know what time it is. If you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept aware anytime we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you enjoy the content as you listen, make sure you give us a like, a 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And write it down, put it in your phones, make a note of it. The Format Podcast is live Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. And finally, if you're really and truly enjoying the podcast and you want to help the show continue to grow, make sure you go ahead, click that join button, join the channel. We're going to have some exclusive content just for you. As I mentioned, I was listening to the, it's called On the Ball, the Rick Bucher On the Ball podcast. And for those of you who don't know who Rick Bucher is, he is a very well-respected NBA journalist. He was a beat writer for the Warriors. He's worked for ESPN. He's worked for Fox Sports 1. He's worked independently. He's written a few books and is now in the process of writing, I think, his third or fourth book about basketball. And he's an NBA insider, so well-respected, got a pretty good podcast, and he gives some interesting perspective on different things. And I'm going to use some of the sound from his podcast earlier today, and we'll talk about it. Best rapper to ever live. What's up, young disciple? Man, that's a tough one. Big was fantastic. Best rapper to ever live. That's a tough one. Maybe if he had a larger body of work, maybe. But yeah, no disrespect to him. He was an all-time great, all-time great. I don't know if I could definitively go as best rapper to ever live, but he was up there, though. He was up there. But yeah, definitely rest in peace, Mrs. Wallace. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to it, man. Bronny James and Mac McClung. So as I mentioned, Mac McClung is fresh off of probably the highlight of his professional basketball career, and that's winning his third consecutive NBA slam dunk contest at All-Star Weekend, which is quite interesting since I guess he's barely an NBA player. I think he's played like 72 minutes or less total in his 3 years in the G League. So it's interesting. But the point is, as we've discussed ad nauseum, we know that the I don't know, Laker Nation. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Probably during the summertime when the sports topics are a lot slower. That's probably when that'll come about. But anyway, so Mac McClung has so let's go back a little bit. Mac McClung is from Virginia, and he was a high school phenom there. Obviously, he's been a dunker for a long time, but he actually broke Allen Iverson's high school basketball scoring records in Virginia. And for those of y'all who don't know about Allen Iverson, he was actually a better football player than he was basketball. And he didn't even want to play basketball at first. I think his mom forced him, but he was originally supposed to go to Notre Dame and be the quarterback there. And Randy Moss was supposed to be his wide receiver. That would have been crazy in the early 90s. But as we know, both of them got in some difficulties and so on and so forth. But yeah. So Mac McClung, he was that guy. He ends up going to Georgetown. I think he played 2 or 3 seasons there, coached by the great Patrick Ewing before he was fired from Georgetown. And then he played his final season at Texas Tech in the Big 12. And so obviously, dream, like many of us, like many people, period, many basketball players, was to make the NBA. But at about 6'1", and you'll hear Rick Bucher talk about this, he's more of a scoring guard, but that's not going to make it in the NBA, right? Not at 6'1", unless, of course, you're Allen Iverson. And clearly he is not. So he's in the G League, and he's trying to get himself to a point where he can work towards being, a point guard or a backup point guard in the NBA. He's having some trouble with that, but he is making his way via what? Via being a slam dunk champion and being, I think last year he was the G League MVP. So he's doing his thing, right? And then on the other side of the coin, obviously, we have Bronny James, LeBron James Jr. And do we need to talk about him? We've talked about him ad nauseum. But basically, quick cliff notes on it. Bronny James is the son of LeBron James, who many have as the best player of all time. Some people have as the second best, but most people have his top 5. And Bronny is basically he's a kid who is a decent enough basketball player for a regular person, well above average for a regular person, but wasn't the best player on his high school team. Kind of had the road paved for him to get to All-America status in high school. Went to college, suffered a cardiac event, but was able to recover fully from that. God bless him for that, and God bless the James family for that. But then in his only year in college at USC, he wasn't a very productive college player. I think he averaged about a little over 5 points a game, not outstanding. So far from the best player on his team, but we know his dad, LeBron James Sr., who wields a lot of power and has wielded a lot of power for a long time in the NBA, basically greased the skids and got him drafted to the Lakers so that they could play on the same team. Then you see all the up and down, right? So originally, Bronny wasn't supposed to go to the G League. Then they decided he was going to the G League, and he's up and down from the G League. He goes down to the G League. He started off slow. He started playing better, and so on and so forth. Comes up to the NBA, gets some minutes here, gets some minutes there, but it's a real back and forth thing. And realistically, everybody knows why he's in the NBA. He's in the NBA because his father did a power play and a power flex. But that said, he's here now and he's working towards being a better player. So anyway, that I would say kind of creates the juxtaposition between McClung and Bronny James, a guy who is trying to earn it all on his own, right? The way most people have to, and a guy who basically was handed something and is now trying to earn what he was handed. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So basically, the podcast started off discussing All-Star Weekend and kind of different storylines regarding that, and then it went from there to discussing McClung as they were discussing All-Star Weekend, and then it got to LeBron James, and LeBron James is his whole I'll just say antics. I'll use that term. His antics of an hour and a half before the All-Star game, letting people know that he wasn't going to play, and then Rick Bucher took it to the next point of the whole Bronny James thing. And that's where the Bronny James and McClung thing came in. And I thought it was really interesting. Steve says, what's up, Steve? Good to see you, brother. Steve says, JJ Redick said he wanted that draft selection. Don't you believe? Yeah. And he also told us that Bronny earned it. So yes, of course I believe him. That's right. Yes, of course I do. Wait. Edward, Bruce don't sound like that other dude. What other dude, Edward? What are we talking about? Help me out here. What other dude? All right, so let's go ahead and we will take it to let's see. Let me get this queued up. Pardon me, y'all. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do my usual move of playing the sound and then stopping the sound and hold on one second, stopping the sound, giving my commentary on it, and then coming right back. All right, so bear with me, y'all, while I go ahead and get this queued up. Wait one. All right, guys, pardon me. All right, let's go ahead and let's hear what Rick Bucher had to say on this whole thing, and I will sporadically interject and give my thoughts on it, and then we'll come back.
He has been wielding his power to do what he wants.
He being LeBron James.
For so long now, I don't think he's the least bit concerned about any blowback. He got his son a guaranteed NBA contract, and a roster spot, an NBA roster spot to sit right next to him. A son who would not have been drafted and wouldn't be on an NBA roster right now, and certainly would not have been given a 4-year, $7.9 million deal.
Now, I know some people are saying, well, how does Rick Bucher know that? Rick Bucher knows that because he's been an NBA insider for more than 20 years. Like he started out, I believe, covering the Warriors, and that was back in the Run TMC era, so early 90s. So he has been around the league and covered it intimately for a very long time, has a lot of sources, deep inside the league. So he knows what he's talking about. Mac versus Bronny 1v1 2026 All-Star game. Book it. Now, that would be interesting. That would be cool. That would be good to see. and then we see who gets banged on, right? But let's go ahead and get back to it. That would be interesting. What's up, your favorite hater? How you doing, man?
You have any idea how extraordinary that is? The power and influence that someone has to make that happen. There's a reason why it's never happened before, and it has never happened before. There's nepotism for sure. No one's ever been able to get their son on an NBA roster with a 4-year guaranteed contract, or a contract of any kind, guaranteed or otherwise. It brings me to the fact that there seem to be a healthy number of people who don't understand why McClung is not in the league. Yes, he was the G League MVP last year.
So this is interesting. Rick's going to break down a little bit of kind of the G League mechanics in terms of guys winning MVP in that league. I thought it was very interesting. And yeah, your favorite hater, he was contacted by Clutch to vote for LeBron in the MVP race, which that's kind of like when Young Disciple and I were talking the other day, really good conversation on the last show. And he was kind of asking me, like, why do we say that, Clutch and LeBron try to manipulate the media? That was one of the things, right? Like Rick Bucher was openly saying that, Clutch reached out to him trying to convince him and get him to vote for LeBron for MVP last year, when we know that LeBron shouldn't have been and wasn't really in the race for MVP. But those are the kind of things that we talk about, openly lobbying the media for their guy to be in certain positions. But yeah, let's go on here.
In part because he only played in the G League and has done so primarily for several years now. It gives him an advantage. He knows the league, and being there all year, the Osceola Magic can sort of build the team around him. There are other players that probably could gun for that award, but they're up and down with their NBA teams.
So that right there is interesting, right? I didn't know that, right? So he being Rick Bucher is speaking to how McClung, not necessarily saying that he couldn't play, but how he had an advantage in terms of earning the G League MVP, because a lot of other players in the G League are back and forth between the NBA and the G League. Now, that was something I wasn't aware of. Now I kind of thought, looking back, I was getting on the Lakers and Bronny for that, in terms of them not letting him just stay down there and develop, and them constantly yanking him back and forth. But that seems to be a more regular than not G League occurrence. So I was surprised to learn that. And realistically, that's one of the reasons why, like, I listen to a lot of people, different shows, and read a lot of different things, because not only am I just looking for stuff to comment on, I'm also looking to learn things. And if you want to learn about basketball as well as, some of the inner workings of the NBA, Rick Bucher on the Ball podcast is a good one to listen to. But yeah, let's continue.
And so when they do play in the G League, slightly different situation. NBA caliber players generally go up and down from the big club, and that takes them out of the running for something like MVP. That's the bottom line. Mac, on the other hand, is not going to be a featured player the same way in the NBA as he was in the G League. He is going to be a role player. And now that changes the dynamic, because it raises the question, what role is he going to play? He is a 6'1" shooting guard weighing somewhere around 180 pounds. He's trying to develop his point guard skills, but right now, more a shooting guard than a point guard. His wingspan is the same as his height, which is average for humans and below average for NBA humans. He apparently shot nearly 40% from three in the G League last season, but that is the G League, and he doesn't fit the general profile of an NBA 3-and-D guy. We're talking about 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guys, long, athletic, wingspans. So they're 6'6" and wingspans of 7 feet, and knockdown three-point shooters.
So real quick, interesting. Did you hear the description that Rick Bucher gave of what would be an ideal NBA 3-and-D guy? About 6'6", 6'7", long arms, knockdown three-point shooters. And it's funny because that was kind of the bill that Bronny James was expected to play coming into the league, and being that 3-and-D guy, not necessarily being an elite scorer, not necessarily being the knockdown shooter, but being a guy who is athletic, being a guy who is supposed to be able to defend, but just based on the physical dimensions and characteristics that Rick Bucher laid out in terms of what an NBA team ideally looks for physically from that type of position, which one would presume in this new era of switch everything into pick and roll and positionless basketball, one would look for that type of size, right? Somewhere between 6'5" and 6'7", and again, he mentioned the long arms and the athleticism. Bronny doesn't really fit that build. So one of the things that's going to be interesting for me, although he is developing, right? He's developing somewhat slowly, but somewhat. It's going to be interesting to see what type of role physically is Bronny going to be able to fit, because what is he, 6'2", 6'3"? At most, he's never going to be a pure point guard. He's never going to be a pure scorer in the NBA. So it's like, what is the mold for him? What's he really going to fit? But let's go on and continue listening to Rick here.
He, as I said, he's trying to show that he can be a point guard, which is really his only shot at getting anything close to a full-time NBA roster spot, as if he could work his way in to being a backup point guard someplace. He's also 26 years old, which is tipping the scales for someone who's still viewed as a prospect. Mac's inability to crack the NBA, though, exposes what a farce it is that Bronny James is not only taking up a roster spot, but has a guaranteed contract and has made 17 appearances and played a total of 72 minutes. That is one more minute than McClung has been given over 3 seasons.
Now, we can look at that a couple of different ways, right? We can just say, if we wanted to, well, Bronny's clearly just better, right? That's why he's gotten more minutes already in his short NBA/G League career than Mac McClung has gotten in 3 seasons in the G League. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, of course, is what? LeBron has a lot of control, as Bucher said at the beginning of this, and as we all know, he has a lot of power, and so he's ensuring that his son gets the time up there on the Laker bench and the opportunity to prove what he can or cannot do on the big stage. So we could look at that both ways, right?
He's not drafted, McClung, but he won G League Rookie of the Year honor. I don't see that coming Bronny's way. McClung was not drafted after leading Texas Tech to the NCAA tournament and winning a first-round game over Utah State before losing to number 3 seeded Arkansas by 2 in the second round. Bronny didn't start in his 1 year in college on a team that did not qualify for the NCAA tournament. And yet, he was drafted in the second round and received a 4-year, $7.9 million contract guaranteed.
We can keep going back to that. But again, at the end of the day, we all know what that is. Rick said it at the beginning, but I think he keeps going back to it just to continue to let us know and put the emphasis on the fact that it really is absurd that this dude got the opportunity that he got. It's not saying he'll never make good on said opportunity. It's kind of the same place I was with this thing from the very beginning. It's not saying that he will never make good on the opportunity. It's saying that he shouldn't have gotten it in the first place.
Mac McClung's lifetime earnings going into this season, $132,000. And LeBron has the audacity to throw a fit or give anyone, like Jaylen Brown, the stink eye for questioning if Bronny is a legit NBA player.
No, see, here's the thing, right? And again, I think I've talked about this on the show before. At the end of the day, we hear all the time how LeBron is such a great judge of talent. LeBron is so cerebral. LeBron knows the game inside out. I've had people tell me LeBron is a better general manager than most of the general managers in the league because he puts together teams that have won championships, right? It hasn't been denied that LeBron is the one who's pulling the puppet strings most of the time, but he's been able to put together championship level teams. So if all that is the case, why can he not see, if he knows what's good and what's not, why can he not see that his son isn't good enough and that he's not ready? Like, I think we probably have some blindness when it comes to our own. I would hope that I don't, but I think maybe it's human nature that we have some blindness when it comes to our own.
Save me well, he's just being a dad defending his son. The only reason he has to defend his son is that he handed him something the entire world can see he did not earn on his own merits.
Sound familiar, anybody? The entire world can see that he was handed something he didn't earn on his own merits. I'll leave it there.
Stand on that. If LeBron's going to stand on something, stand on that. Stand on, I am so powerful, I can get my son into the NBA just because I want him to be my teammate before I retire. As I said, it's an impressive display of power and influence, no question. But don't act as if it's somehow an insult to point out Bronny wouldn't be in the NBA right now if his dad hadn't coerced the Lakers into making it happen.
Okay, so we know that's the deal, right? And so this is where, we kind of look at it and we say, here is the, I'm not going to say the conundrum, but where we just look at the dichotomy that's a better word, the dichotomy between Bronny James and Mac McClung. And you see a guy, Mac McClung, grinding and doing everything he can to get his opportunity. And he may at this point be better than Bronny James, right? At this point in their careers, but he's not going to get the opportunity because he doesn't have the right name. Let's see. Young Disciple says, y'all take information, add to it. He didn't send Bucher anything lobbying for MVP. Why are we still talking about? No. Bucher, not in this particular episode, but Bucher has said it publicly that Clutch Sports emailed him trying to convince him to vote for LeBron for MVP last year. This is not something that we are adding to or making up. Nah, Bucher has said that publicly. Your favorite hater says, exactly, stand on it. Don't talk to us like we're stupid. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people get irritated, right? Because, for instance, when LeBron tweets about Bronny, he still has that stupid hashtag earned, not given. Now, if he talks about himself and says earned, not given, I got no problem with that. He earned everything he got. He can't say that. He cannot say that for Bronny. He can't. And we all know that. When you get JJ Redick sitting up there at the opening press conference with Bronny after the draft and with Bronny and Dalton Connect saying, no, you earned this. Come on, man. We all know better. Like, stop lying to us. And I think that's the reason that people are on it the way they are, because they're so frustrated about the fact that, these guys are trying to front like we don't know what's going on. What's the old expression? What is it? Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. I think that's how the expression goes, or something to that effect, right? It's really annoying, right? And so I get why people are irritated. But yeah, back to the thing. So Mac McClung has put in the work, the hard work, right? I think he's made more money from winning slam dunk contests than he has made in his NBA/G League career thus far, right? Now, here's the thing. We don't live in a communist country. We live in a capitalist nation, right? So that means certain people are going to get more money than others. Certain people are going to have more success than others. It's not always going to be fair, right? It's not a quote unquote egalitarian society. That's not how we do it, right? So, being that this is the nation that we live in and this is the type of life that we have, and that works really well for some people, not so well for others. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that I expect that Bronny and Mac should be making, the same money, because realistically, and let's be fair here, is there a drive for people to see Mac McClung outside of the slam dunk contest? Not really. If you put Mac McClung's jersey up, is that selling out in a matter of hours? Nope, not really. That's not making the Orlando Magic a whole ton of money, right? Not like Bronny. Bronny is a commodity. So we have to keep that in mind. So maybe, just maybe, here's the other side of it, right? And this might sound surprising coming from me, but maybe the Lakers looked at this as not just giving LeBron what he wants, but an investment, right? An investment, because to the point, I don't know if it was Young Disciple or someone else made this when I first started talking about this topic, the Lakers have already made a ton of money off of Bronny in terms of ticket sales, in terms of jersey sales. They've made a lot of money off him already. So it's not that serious. What's good? Good to see you. Good to see you. Appreciate you. But yeah, when it comes to Bronny, maybe the Lakers looked at it like this is an investment, right? And so can I be mad at that? No, I can't. And again, I don't expect that Mac McClung, a guy who has no name and I'm not going to say no cachet, but no name and no real marketability. Like when he came into the league, I can't expect that he would be able to be in the same position that Bronny James was in, right? And so that's part of the reason. If we're going to be real here, we got to be objective, right? I pride myself on being objective, so I have to do. And as I'm also saying being objective, I can also say that we are seeing Bronny James improving over time in his game and in his G League production. So I got to make sure I mention that. But at the end of the day, Bucher is right. We know why he's in the league. We know how he got into the league. We know he probably shouldn't have gotten into the league, but he's there now. And, it appears he's making the most of his opportunity. We will see how it goes going forward. But at the end of the day, I kind of get, how we can compare Bronny and Mac McClung. And Mac McClung, as Bucher said, is already 26 years old. So he's getting now near the time where he's probably going to age out pretty soon of his NBA dreams. So maybe the opportunity is that, there you go, Young Disciple. Exactly. 50 plus mil. So I was saying, Mac McClung may well age out of his NBA dreams pretty soon here. And so if that's going to be the case, well, he might need to start thinking about going overseas. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? He can make some pretty decent money overseas, right? He might go over to China and he might end up being like, a Jimmer Fredette type player. I don't think he's as good as Jimmer Fredette, but you get the point. Jimmer Fredette is like legendary in China. He made himself some good money. He had a cup of coffee and a sweet roll with a few different teams in the NBA as well. He could go to McClung, that is, he could go to Europe and play, right? He could go to Taiwan or the Philippines. So there are opportunities for him to play overseas. And I totally get it. Yeah, Laker Nation is coming. I got you. But yeah, it's obviously the dream is to play in the NBA, right? That's the best basketball league in the world. But if you can't get it done there, but you're good enough to be a professional, you might want to think about going overseas. Like, I think that's just smart. You can still make good money. You're still a gifted player. And if the NBA dream is not working for you, take the detour. So, that's kind of where I am on that. All right. So that's the McClung and Bronny James topic here. So you know what time it is. I'm going to open up these phone lines. So let's go ahead and get it. I will take a couple calls. Let's try to keep them relatively brief. But yeah, let's go ahead, and if anybody has any commentary on McClung, Bronny James, kind of what you think about that. Do you think it's fair that Bronny was given all the opportunities that McClung has worked for and is not getting? Do you understand where I'm coming from in terms of, sometimes having the name and having the connection means more than how good you are? I would love to hear these thoughts. 904-219-8264. 904-219-8264. Young Disciple says, comparing a 26-year-old to Bronny is nasty work on all levels. Well, why is it though? Why is it nasty work on all levels? I mean, he did his work in college. Realistically, if we're fair, Bronny should still be in college. Like, he's not good enough to be where he is. So McClung, he did his work in college, and now, he came out and he's tried to do his work in the G League, but whoever it was deemed that he wasn't good enough to make it to the next level on any type of permanent basis. And so, they are where they are. I don't think it's nasty work. I think it's a fair comparison to look at. We can't say, oh, Bronny's only 20. Yeah, so he's only 20. So he and his pops and Clutch, whoever, they chose to come out and come into the league. So that's no longer really an excuse for me. That you don't get that. If you make the choice to put yourself in this position, you don't get to then say, well, he's only 20. Nah, he could have been in college developing himself and developing his game. So, Steve, you wild, man. Let's see. Yeah, All-Star King of the Hill. What up, G? I think that's the well, I don't know exactly how you play King of the Hill, but I think they were discussing the possibility of a one-on-one tournament, but I don't believe it's going to happen, man. I can't see it. And if they do, here's the problem. If you come up with the one-on-one tournament, right? Are we sure that the best players are actually going to play? Or are we going to have some, role player type guys trying to make a name doing it, just like they're doing the slam dunk contest? That's not what we want to see. We want to see, let's see, what's an example? I want to see Devin Booker versus Anthony Edwards. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of matchup I want to see. Obviously, LeBron's not doing it. He's too old and he doesn't do all-star events anyway. So that's fine. I want to see, what's another? Kevin Durant versus, I'm picking a name for a similar size, Kevin Durant versus Brandon Ingram, right? I want to see that. I want to see, those type of matchups. I don't want to see role player guys off the bench, right? So that's, I want to see Kyrie Irving versus John Morant, right? I want to see something like that. Exactly. Showcase that bag. You're right, G. Yeah, show the skills, right? Oh, we keep hearing this is the most skilled era of all time, right? But I tell you what, we have a one-on-one tournament in the modern NBA on All-Star Weekend. Man, we will see so many carries, it'll be ridiculous. But anyway, so many carries, so many travels, but it is what it is. So all right, looks like I'm not going to get any calls on the Bronny and McClung topic, so we will move right along. We're keeping good time here. Appreciate that. So, all right,